You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'm going to get right to it very quickly because we have a hell of a show for you today. My guest is the wonderful returnee Elizabeth Holtzman, former congresswoman, former head of the Women's Political Caucus in the Congress, former comptroller of New York City, former DA of Brooklyn, New York, former so many things, and the first always in all of them. And she's going to be here and talk about both the Harvey Weinstein case, where he was freed of his New York sentence. He's still in prison in California, but and of course the many Trump cases. So that's coming up, as well as fighting words. So let's dig right in. But first we have to go, you know it, inside the headlines. Well, this headline just absolutely chilled my soul when I read it. I mean, and it was like getting hit upside the head with shock. It simply reads, Trump respects women, most men say, period. That's the headline. So this is the piece behind it. It's by Jess Bidgood, Bidgood, with additional commentary and editorial commentary by Jessica Bennett, who is a very good and quite feminist and used to be the women's editor at the New York Times, or the editor of the women's section. The piece is about the New York Times Siena College poll, which asked voters, what did they think of President Trump respecting women? Did they think a lot or not at all, or what do they think? Now, first of all, remember Siena College is a Catholic school, and secondly, the question is pretty funny, but it's not funny, it turns out, at all. A majority of men, 54%, said that Trump respects women either a lot or some. 54%. Just 31% of women saw things that way. Of course, I want to know what that 31% of women was thinking when they thought that way. That disparity is important to understand in an election that already serves primed to turn on the question of how big the gender gap actually is between Trump, who draws more support from men, and Biden, who leads among women, is going to be. The Times poll found that Trump had a 20 percentage point lead among men, 20 points, while Biden had a 16 percentage point lead among women. And Celinda Lake, who's a Democratic pollster for the Biden campaign, says that the formula for any Democrat in a close race is to win women by more than they lose men. And frankly, right now we're behind. Having women becomes as intensely anti-Trump as men are pro-Trump is really, really important. So the Times polling has found that voters view Trump more positively on issues like his handling of the economy and law and order than they did in 2020. I don't understand this. Handling of the economy, law and order, oh my God. But on the matter of whether Trump respects women, he has actually fallen a small amount, 4 percentage points, will be, since the poll last asked the question on 2016. And this could be a harbinger and a reflection of his sentences for various crimes. There were the January proceedings of the civil defamation trial, on which Trump was ordered to pay $83 million in damages to a woman who accused him of rape, and how he disparaged Nikki Haley, who was then running for the GOP presidential nomination, by making fun of her bird brain, and now he's in court over a new sex scandal. And the fact that it's gelled that much to show up in the numbers this early is surprising, Lake said, and I would say encouraging that the numbers dropped, even if it was only 4 points. Trump has the support of 57% of men in general, according to the Times poll. Only 28% of men think he does not respect women at all. That's still a pretty high percentage, I think. Women are more likely to be Democrats, so part of the gender gap between Trump and Biden is probably explained by existing partisanship rather than anything particular about the way they see Trump. But interestingly, the divide in how women and men view Trump in terms of his respect for women persists even when you look at Republicans alone. The pollsters found that 85% of Republican men believe Trump respects women. 85%. While 72% of Republican women believe that to be the case. There is some interest in Biden among Republicans who don't think Trump respects women, so they found. So I just thought you'd be interested in that particular headline. I mean, given the fact that polls in general are just totally unreliable now, and we shouldn't trust them, we shouldn't pay attention to them, and so forth and so on, it still gives one pause and also a tail. Not only pause, but a tail and ears and a snout and all sorts of other things. There's one other thing inside the headlines that I want to raise, even though it's not a headline, it's a book. But it's an important book, and it's too important. There's too many people involved in it to take it on as guests for Women's Media Center Live. But it's called Fighting Mad, Resisting the End of Roe v. Wade. And it's edited by Crystal E. Littlejohn and Ricky Solinger, and it's published by the University of California Press. And I'm singling it out because it is really fairly encyclopedic. It is sort of a sisterhood is powerful, specifically on abortion. For example, it has abortion from a black perspective, disability, Dobbs, and a black perspective, from an indigenous reproductive justice perspective, from Plan C, teamwork, and class differences in rural, urban, in Appalachia, Asian communities, incarcerated pregnant people, the fight for queer liberation. And then it's also pegged by geography. Heartland, Kansas, a piece on Austin, a piece on becoming an abortion doula, which is interesting. And Louisiana, Oklahoma, and using disability and access statements to get abortion. And then, of course, there are the political pieces in abortion access in the face of fascism, and the religious ones, Muslim organizations, Muslim Americans, Torah and abortion justice, and evangelicals. And what everyone gets wrong about evangelicals and abortions is an interesting piece. So it's a pretty, as I say, encyclopedic, very thorough, and very informative. It's called Fighting Mad, Resisting the End of Roe v. Wade, and the editors are, again, Littlejohn and Solinger, and it's University of California Press. And it's one other additional tool in the array of tools we are going to use and need even more. Onward. We have to take our first break here, but I will return very shortly with our very special guest, Elizabeth Holtzman. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
My guest for today's conversation is Liz Holtzman. The great Liz Holtzman, returning to the program after many previous visits. She is an American attorney, of course, a very famous one, who is now in private practice after more than 20 years in government as an elected official. During her 4 terms as a U.S. Congresswoman, she captured national attention for her role on the House Judiciary Committee, where she voted to impeach President Richard Nixon and questioned President Ford about the Nixon pardon. She chaired the Immigration and Refugees Subcommittee, where she co-authored with Senator Ted Kennedy the Refugee Act of 1980. She co-founded and was elected and re-elected as the first Democratic co-chair of the Congressional Caucus for Women's Issues, and she wrote many laws, including extending the deadline for ratifying the Equal Rights Amendment and the Rape Privacy Act. She was the first member of Congress to expose the U.S. government's inaction on Nazi war criminals living in America, and she spearheaded the effort to bring them to justice. When elected, she was the youngest woman to ever be elected to Congress, a record she held for 42 years. She subsequently became the first woman elected district attorney in New York City, serving 8 years as DA of Kings County, Brooklyn, where she argued successfully before the U.S. Supreme Court and pioneered new strategies for prosecuting sexual assault and environmental crimes. And she led the effort to end the practice of using peremptory challenges to remove African Americans from juries because of their race. She was also the first, look at all these firsts, and only woman to be elected Comptroller of New York. In that position, she managed $50 billion in the city's 5 pension funds and issued more than $20 billion in city bonds. In 2013, U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel appointed her to the Response Systems to Adult Sexual Assault Crimes Panel, which reviewed the handling of sexual assault in the military, and where she developed recommendations for reform. She has written several books and many articles and has received many honors for honorary degrees, including from Smith College, for her significant contributions to American politics. It was always a great honor and a personal pleasure to welcome back Liz Holtzman. Hi, Liz. Welcome back to Women's Media Center Live. It's so good to have you here.
Well, thanks, Robin. It's great to be with you and your listeners.
Well, I was going to ask you, I had planned to ask you, of course, about Trump's 740,000 charges, indictments, and trials, and I still want to get to a lot of them because you have incredible experience in national law as well as, federal and state and at every level. But we have to take a slight detour over Harvey Weinstein, I'm afraid, because that just landed on us today. Jane Manning was just on the show last week, and she was talking about this and the suit that they've brought to try and change this crazy law. And I kept saying, but whatever happened to priors? The whole, on every cop show on television, you go, and what are his priors? How can this be that somebody has this record, not just reputation, but this record in the law of a whole slew of cases, and it can't be introduced? Can you explain this for the simple-minded among us like me?
Well, I have not read the opinion. I was tied up today with all of the other cases that are going on, both in the Supreme Court and in Washington and the Supreme Court in New York City. So I can't talk about that, but I can say that there is a principle in the law that if you're just going to use bad acts, I don't know whether the court made the correct decision here because I haven't read it.
Right.
But obviously it's shocking because you just somehow don't think that a case is going to get this far without if it's so erroneous. But there is a principle in the law that if you're trying to show bad acts by somebody or bad character of a person, I should say, that sometimes it becomes what you're introducing can be too prejudicial and therefore should be excluded. So that is a principle. And remember, this also it dealt. I mean, that's a principle I know very well because when I was in Congress, I wrote a law to stop this kind of thing from going on in rape trials.
Right.
What would happen in rape trials was that if the rape victim took the stand, the the defense counsel would ask the rape victim about every other sexual encounter she had. Right. And the premise was that if you ever said yes, you would never say no. So you had to be very careful about the use of past, what you might call bad acts or past acts. And I can't comment, though, about what happened in this case with Harvey Weinstein because I just haven't read the opinion. And I just don't know if I believe that the court was correct or not. Because you have to be concerned about fairness to the defendant, as despicable as the defendant may be.
Right. No, I can understand that. Even I mean, in this case, it certainly raises my gorge, but I can understand it. What I can't understand are I mean, it's a case of a serial rapist. It's a case of if somebody has 10, 20, 50 thefts behind them and they're up for theft. You can't.
Right, but you can exclude prior if the defendant takes the stand. Of course, you can question him about it. But if the defendant doesn't take the stand, then it's a question about being able to introduce these things.
Wow. Wow. Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, it's a question.
Yeah.
Obviously that just people who have a record. It's very damaging to introduce that record before a jury. That's going to be very devastating.
Yeah.
Sometimes just because someone has committed a past act doesn't mean they're going to commit a future act. So
Agreed.
So it's an issue of fairness and an issue of precedent. I don't know the details of the Weinstein case. I wasn't following them, and I haven't read the opinion, so I don't want to comment on it.
But interesting how they decide. I mean, in other words, how?
Yes, how they decide and why they rejected the lower courts. There were two lower courts that reviewed. I mean, that dealt with this. One was the trial court, and then the intermediate appellate court. So it's kind of shocking. I mean, the First Department is a highly regarded court, so it's kind of shocking. But on the other hand, it's defendants' rights are not popular.
Mm-hmm. No,
Let's
I understand.
Put it that way.
I understand.
And I just hope that. I mean, for me, the saving grace here is that Harvey Weinstein is facing charges in California.
I know. There's another case. I know, yeah.
Yeah, I got that. So, I mean, the important thing is that he's not going to escape justice.
Right.
And they can bring, I don't know what kind of case they would have if they couldn't use these other witnesses. It may still be that they'd have a strong case.
Yeah.
So this may not be the end of Harvey Weinstein's trials and tribulations, so to speak, in New York State.
It's just interesting. It's just not, I mean, there for a brief period, I was celebrating. By God, it's going to be the justice system that saves us from despotism and end of democracy and Trump and everything. It's going to be the justice. It's going to be justice. How about that? And then was hit with sort of bang in a row. I can't even list them all or even attempt to.
Of course.
And the Supreme Court, of course, which gives me indigestion. And then Weinstein on top of it, and I got very depressed all of a sudden. But let me ask a couple of things about Trump. So we now know that there's the new Arizona case, which is interesting because he's an unindicted co-conspirator. I don't understand why he's unindicted, but that's my ignorance.
Well, it may be because they don't have strong enough evidence against his role. They may have some evidence, enough to have as an unindicted co-conspirator. That doesn't mean that they can't indict him at a later point. It just may mean that they just don't have sufficient evidence about his role, direct evidence, and strong enough evidence at a trial.
I see.
So that may be the reason they've done that. I don't know, but I suspect that could be the reason. And don't despair that may not be corrected, because there may be people who have direct information about Donald Trump's role,
who haven't come forward yet.
Or who may enter a plea, and then as part of that, directly provide testimony about Trump. So we can't give up hope about that yet.
And then there's the criminal case about with the porn star and and that's going on now. And then there's the election subversion case in Georgia, and then there's the mishandling of classified documents case in Florida, and then there's it is a cluster muck, to recoin a word, of malfeasance, it seems to me. What do you think is the case I don't mean to be asking, but I do, that will do it?
Well, I'm very worried about the Supreme Court. I mean, we have a Supreme Court that has dismantled the 14th Amendment in so many ways, has dismantled the 15th Amendment in so many ways, and is now dismantling the basis of the Constitution, which was a system of checks and balances. And instead of accepting the fact that one of the checks against a president, which is explicitly in the Constitution, namely that he can be, or she can be, prosecuted and indicted after they leave office, silent about what happens during office, but that they can be brought to law after the president leaves office. And now it looks as though they are worried about having a president subject to the criminal laws, prosecuted for crimes as the president, and are going to undermine the indictment that was brought by Jack Smith. I mean, this is to me, it's I expected this. I actually expected this to happen, predicted it was going to happen, but it's disgusting to see that it's happening. This court wants to dismantle the Constitution from the Second Amendment, which exposes everybody in this country to being shot, and especially school children, to being shot by every lunatic and every other gun nut in the country, to the 15th Amendment, which, now all of a sudden there are restrictions on restrictions that states put on voting rights. Those are fine. And gerrymandering, that's fine. And now we're going to have Trump. Now we're going to shield presidents from prosecution. The courts is always so worried we're going to have, or this Alito, who's how he ever got on the court is beyond. But he doesn't deserve to be on the court. But Alito is saying, well, we have to worry about the tit-for-tat prosecution. Well, excuse me, for 200 years, we had no president ever prosecuted. Why? Because they weren't criminals. We now have a president who has, on the face of it, and has been indicted for crime after crime after crime on a state level, on a federal level.
Yep.
We don't expect to have many more presidents like that, and hopefully we won't. So their worry is absurd. We had no problem for 200 years, and now they're worried that this is going to happen every second. I mean, these people that talk about originalism, originally nobody worried about this.
Well, of course.
Because they didn't expect to have people elected like that as president.
No.
And now they worry, it's going to happen every second. I mean, where are these? I mean, where is the IQ of these judges? And where is their understanding of the system of checks and balances? Where they just protecting Trump, and that is just inexcusable. I studied the Constitution very carefully when we had to deal with the impeachment of Richard Nixon, and I studied it carefully in writing several books about bringing presidents to justice. Never did I encounter the idea that presidents couldn't be prosecuted for their crimes. I mean, what's to stop? This idea is so crazy. If they say presidents can't be prosecuted for crimes committed, official acts while they're president, then what's to stop President Biden from saying, something, I'm going to get the FBI to shoot Donald Trump.
Wow.
Okay?
Yep.
And he can't be prosecuted. I mean, is this what we want in the White House? Is this what we want for a president? What are they thinking?
Well, they're not.
What kind of country are they turning us into? They're turning us into a country that just worships power when it's in the hands of Republicans, and eliminates power when it could be in the hands of Democrats. And that's just despicable. And of course, limiting minority voting rights, removing the right to choice from women.
That's the core.
Think about what they did. Right. Look at what they did to women's rights. Just abolished a 50-year precedent.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I think we're really at the mercy of a court that is made up of people who have an ideological agenda as opposed to the welfare of the American people, as opposed to the rule of law, as opposed to constitutional correctness.
It's so frightening. It's absolutely.
Yes, it's frightening because it's where are they going to go next?
Yeah, I don't know, and I fear to think of it. And it's frightening also because we've been saying, I've been saying, and many people have been saying, well, where is a principled Republican or two to stand up and say, stop this? This has gone far. This is enough. And there now have been a number of them who stand up, but it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't dent it. It doesn't dent the onslaught. And now today, in the New York Times was a piece by a number of women saying that Trump, from the New York Times Siena poll, that it asked voters how much they think Trump respects women, and some say a lot, some say not much, but 54% said that Trump respects women either a lot or some, and just 31% of women saw things that way. Now that's, of course, just one issue because there's race and there's democracy. It's every aspect of democracy. But I don't know anymore how to turn this around. There's always the election, but the election is a scary thing now. I mean, it is not. I'm not as confident as I was. At one point I kept thinking, let them say what they want. We surprised them in 2016, and we surprised them before. Each time there was going to be a red tide, and this time they will go to their polling places and they will vote, and this will be the end of it. But it's not the end of it, and it's a worldwide trend now of right wing.
Yes, because Russia is behind this.
Yeah,
and we are not paying enough attention to stopping it, in my opinion. We didn't stop it in 2015 and 2016, and we know that the Russians are at it again, and we know the Chinese are at it again.
And what do we do?
Do they want what?
What do we do? What do we do? What could we do?
Well, I mean, I think I think this is really a responsibility that Biden has. I mean, he's got to get the head of the FBI and the head of the CIA in to talk about what they are doing with respect to identifying this threat from abroad. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about what groups they're targeting in the U.S. We cannot permit this. We cannot permit the Soviets and the Chinese communists to determine the outcome of our elections. That has to be done immediately. And I think that has to be looked at. I mean, the other thing is, too, the fact that we got rid of the fairness doctrine in our dealing with our media. It used to be that you couldn't just give one side. You had to give a fair account of the news. I mean, now right-wing press, the right-wing press is just beyond. I mean, it's one conspiracy nonsense after another. Yeah. It's just moronic. It's idiotic. But people believe it because they see it in the newspaper, or they watch it on TV, or they see it on their internet. So, it's hard to combat this unless we give ourselves the proper tools to deal with disinformation, misinformation. I mean, the thing that we're hearing in New York right now with at the Supreme Court trial of Donald Trump is the head of this newspaper, the National Enquirer, said that he came to an agreement with Donald Trump where he was basically going to act as part of Trump's campaign operation. So that he was going to produce good stories that would help Donald Trump and he would kill all the bad stories that would hurt Donald Trump, and he would pay, he would work with Donald Trump and his people
And
to
the
deal with the
campaign.
bad stories
Yeah.
and the campaign. So,
Yeah.
he was an arm of the Trump campaign. Well, the press can't be an arm of a campaign. The press is supposed to be a free press,
Yeah.
meaning free in every way. They can make stupid decisions, but they can't be part of a campaign. They can't be part of a foreign operation that's designed to bring America down. But we're dealing with very nefarious forces here, large forces, foreign governments, and it seems that we're not protecting the American people, and they're very susceptible. People are very susceptible to what they hear or what they want to believe, and what they hear on the media, with various kinds of media. And it's a full-time job, maybe more, to counter the disinformation.
Well, Women's Media Center's trying, but it's one finger of the glove,
Right.
And it's just not enough. It's staggering the amount of pure, unadulterated, blatant propaganda and lies
Right.
that comes at you every single day. And
and we have a guy is now testifying under oath that he did this deliberately in his newspaper, the National Enquirer,
right.
at the behest of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
As part of his effort to become president.
Because
so what does that tell you?
They don't even see
about the others.
Yeah, they don't even see that as embarrassing anymore. There's a strange, bizarre honesty about the way that they say, "Oh yeah, well we did this and then we did that, and then we met and we planned this and this," and it's surreal. I mean, I'm back to the surrealism of the first days when he came down the escalator. I can't compute it. I can't believe it. It's not the country I grew up in and have lived in and have demonstrated it and have criticized it, but have loved. I mean, I can't. It's amazing.
Right. Well, no, my mother fled. My mother and her family were refugees coming to the United States in 1921. I mean, this was sanctuary for them.
Of course.
Like they fled actually persecution, and they fled all kinds of discrimination, and they found sanctuary here. But the fact of the matter is, this country has provided huge opportunity for millions of people who've helped to build this. People who came here voluntarily and people who came here involuntarily, and those who were already here when everyone came afterwards.
Yeah, that's
namely
right.
the indigenous, the Native Americans, the indigenous people. But I guess what comes can be taken away, and our freedoms. The fact that there are millions of Americans who voted for Donald Trump and don't recognize that our freedoms can go up in smoke, as they have begun to already. The freedom of a woman to control her body has gone up in smoke because of these people on the Supreme Court who decided that what crazy, bigoted, misogynistic judges and legal scholars 300 years ago thought about women, that should control women's lives today.
It's amazing.
I mean, what normal person would ever think of such a thing?
Civil War
what normal person would ever think that the U.S. Constitution would be created, putting bigots and misogynists in charge of what was to happen to women? It's crazy to think that that's the case, but that's what's happened. So our freedoms are being taken away: freedom to vote, freedom of free elections because of the influence of foreign governments,
right?
And so it's very dangerous, and Americans have to be alert to this. And instead of believing the nonsense they hear from the Trump campaign, they ought to be starting to figure things out for themselves, stand on their own 2 feet, and do their own thinking. But they're influenced by propaganda. Sadly, we have a big job to do to educate the American people.
It's
huge. And American women. I mean, women can't just let their rights go up in smoke as they have.
No.
Can't.
No.
And they have been in some states. I mean, I think I give terrific credit. Ohio, just most recently.
Yeah.
Where they restored the the rights of women to choice. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be battled everywhere, but women can be mobilized, and decent men can be mobilized on
Of
this
course.
issue.
Of course.
But we see, right, so the Supreme Court wants to take it away, and Americans are taking it back. That's what we have to see. Donald Trump wants to take away our freedoms and our democracy, and Americans have to take it back. Period. And there's no hope otherwise. We cannot rely on the court. The court is a construct of the right wing, Federalist Society, and right wing thought, and they're hostile to women's rights. They're hostile to racial and minority rights. They're hostile to the environment. They're hostile to democracy. It's pretty shocking.
There goes.
I don't know what they like except Trump.
I don't either, and I don't understand. I still, honest to God, at my core, I don't understand it. And there's a part of me that just it's like a crazy lady banging her head against a wall trying to figure out if it hurts. I mean, I don't understand why they now feel that he's more acceptable. People who didn't vote for him last time are now voting for him this time. There is a definite gender gap. Women are not, and maybe, just maybe, women will pull it off and save the day because abortion is such a touch point, that's such a flashpoint and we've seen it turn out again and again and again, that the Republicans are terrified of it. So maybe that'll do the trick, but it's just awfully nerve-wracking.
Right? How could any self-respecting woman vote for Donald Trump when he boasts about the fact that he's the one who appointed the 3 judges to the Supreme Court who took away women's rights to control their bodies? Right. So we women have to rely on state legislatures, mostly dominated by men, to decide how we're going to control our bodies, how many children and if any children we will have, and who's going to support those children? Those guys?
Oh,
Definitely
please.
not.
No.
Definitely not.
No,
it's insane.
The anti-abortion
women have to
people
stand up for their own rights finally, and if they don't, they're going to be taken away.
Yeah.
They will be taken away. These guys in the Supreme Court, and they are guys, took away women's rights.
Yeah.
And only way it will come back is if women stand up, and that means standing up to Trump, who put those guys in the court for the specific purpose of ending abortion rights. And it's not abortion rights; it's women's right to control their bodies. And you watch and see that the next thing is going to be contraception.
Of course,
that's where they're going next.
Of course, it is. It's perfectly clear. It makes it hard to breathe, and I don't know what to do. So I guess we just keep doing what we've been doing and do it more and do it better and do it
Correct.
more.
And it will happen. I believe that women can retake their rights if they stand up for it. And we've seen it in the states where they've put the issue of abortion on the ballot. The abortion rights and women's rights to control their body has won. And I think the amazing thing is that these are not just liberal states. We're talking Ohio. We're talking Montana. We're talking Kansas.
Yeah.
And we're talking actually Alabama.
I mean, Kansas and Alabama are the real killer. I mean,
but you know what they did with intro. I mean, with test tube babies. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I know.
And they were banning that in Alabama, and finally, the crazy right winger said, "Ooh, this is a problem for us."
Yeah.
And they changed their point of view. So because the women spoke out.
It is
women
changeable.
spoke out.
Yeah, and that's what we've got.
It is changeable. If it can change in Alabama, it can change it anywhere.
Then there's hope.
There's hope. So, Robin, do not despair.
All right, Liz. Liz told me not to despair, so I will not despair. I will take a big, deep breath of air, and I will roll up my sleeves. What did Pat used to say, Schroeder? You can't wring your hands and roll up your sleeves at the same time. And I will not despair.
Exactly.
And as always, you have stiffened my spine until it's ready to snap, and and we'll go on. Oh, thank you, Liz. Thank you, and bless your dear beloved soul for everything you are and everything you stand for and everything you do and say.
Well,
and
thank you, Robin.
All right.
You're very kind.
No, I'm not.
Overly generous.
I'm not
Yes.
kind and generous. I'm just truthful. That's all.
Well, all of us have to roll up our sleeves, all of us, all women and men who are decent on issues of women's rights, and all Americans really, to recover our freedoms and ensure our freedoms. We have to be out there in November and working before that and make sure that Trump doesn't become reelected.
It's time for our final break, but I'll be back directly with some fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
The sound and the fury, signifying nothing. Those are fighting words. On most days, and certainly in most conversations, I spend much of my time vociferously defending younger generations, especially those in political protests. I do not find them lazy or zoned out, unconcerned or uninvolved. Mostly I find them smart, well-informed, and willingly impassioned. But the other night, watching demonstration after sit-in, after march, after arrests on campuses, from Maine to California, I did have some other thoughts. These protests had begun in understandable and justifiable outrage at what was happening in Gaza, triggered by the Israeli Defense Force, quote, errors or, quote, accidents that seem to have deliberately murdered international volunteer workers for World Food Kitchen. The protests were decrying what appeared to be the death by famine tactics employed by Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu's government. So the food trucks had been stalled or delayed or flat out stopped from getting medicines, survival supplies, and drinkable water to the Gazan civilian population, living in the open rubble that is left of bombed-out Gaza. More than 30,000 people have died from that population so far. Over 14,000 of them children. Demonstrations protesting that are a good thing, a principled thing, a just thing. And it was a wise and politic thing, too, that at first the demonstrators in their chants and on their materials also referred to the Hamas-led October 7th, 2023 assault on Israel that left at least 1,200 dead and 253 taken as hostages. To feel outrage at this was a necessary thing, because 1, it was only fair and certainly called for, and 2, it was hideously true. But then, something changed. It came from tremendous pain, no question about that. Enormous, almost unspeakable pain. But then, the chants, the songs, the call-outs shifted, became more furious, became, some of them, anti-Semitic. Now, actually, both Jews and Arabs are Semitic people, so that being anti-Semitic should also reflect that, but never mind accuracy in language anywhere else, or here, apparently. This means that there were either non-student agitators from outside the campus infiltrating the demonstrations and affecting the demonstrators, or that the students themselves were misinformed or even just dumb. Watching that shift take place, I thought about all the demonstrations I'd been in. I remembered the excitement, the adrenaline pulse, the thrill of fear, the throat hoarse from too many cigarettes and too much coffee and too much chanting. Far too much. I remember the joy of passionate belief in my cause, the love I felt for the other protesters, the bold freedom I could feel coursing through my veins. There's nothing like it. And one's life is poorer if one has never experienced that solidarity. Fear is there, too, of course. But the override is exultation. And not to admit it, not to even let oneself know it, creates a profound betrayal of self. As time went on, though, the presence of men in those demonstrations had concerned and then alarmed me, and they had moved from being the demonstrators into influential and almost immediate leadership roles. The tone changed. It was more screaming. It was rage. You could see it in the faces, feel it in their actions, and there was nothing you could do to stop it, or penetrate it, or even be heard or address it. Chants of "kill the pigs" at the cops, who were miserable at being there on campus, at the invitation of the campus administration, and through no fault of their own. I would think to myself, these are working-class guys. Just last week one of them showed up to check our neighbor's burglar in. Was really nice. But none of that mattered. It was swept away because the crowd wave was building. The same way I could see it building now as the crowd chanted, "Death to Israel," mimicking Hamas. Why mimic Hamas? Hamas is part of the toxicity, the taunts. Meaningless taunts. But they come from a place of real pain. Yet they signify nothing. The listeners shut down. And suddenly I was very tired and felt very old. It had been decades since women in demonstrations have taught me how unproductive it is, how unnecessary, how self and other lacerating it is to insult the people you are supposedly trying to affect. But the red faces thrust in front of the cameras, the screamed denunciations, the ear-splitting curses went on and on and on, armored against or ignorant of any reactions to them. I found myself longing for the time, tragically not anywhere in sight, when people would no longer confuse Jews with Israelis or Palestinians with Hamas. When, in fact, flags and posters and signs and buttons and other identifying paraphernalia we all, me too, sought so dearly, might vanish instantly, and we couldn't even tell who was who. It would be silent, perhaps even soundless. The zealous Shabbat missionaries, as well as the militant Palestinian organizers, would all be gone, leaving the suffering behind, leaving a child being held as a hostage without its mother, and leaving a child being held by its mother as she starves to death. What, I wondered, would we do without those identifying directives, reminding us constantly who was to be heard and who not, who was to be feared and who not, who was to be pitied and worthy of mercy, worthy of forgiveness, and who not? who, after all, was to be considered human and who not. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.